welcome back at the Workplace Ninja Connect podcast episodes, where we interview our speakers for our annual event of the Workplace Ninja Connect here in Gorinchem. We have different guests on the table, different topics, so really look forward to this one. My name is Frans Oudenorp, and together with
Peter Daalmans,
we are hosting these kind of podcast episodes, interviews, or whatever you call it. But we have, again, nice guest on the table, Peter.
A full table now.
Yeah,
so
luckily.
all microphones are used. So we have Niels Kok, we have Stefan Dingemanse, and Patrick van den Born.
Yeah. And what kind of topics do we have today?
It's a little bit of a mixed table, but I think it's also maybe collaborating because on one side, Niels, your session is about WDAC.
Yeah, which has recently been renamed to App Control. Yeah, when I entered the session, it was still WDAC, so I hope they forgive me.
Yeah, we have forgiven you already. And Stefan and Patrick's session was all about securing Citrix, AVD, Windows 365, and Omnissa session hosts.
Yeah, that's really a mouthful. But basically, the session hosts on the back end, the security configuration is basically the same. Only the agent running on the machines are different from the different vendors, right?
Ah, cool. Yeah. So let's chat about that. So let's first question about app control, because why do you think that app control management is not widely used currently?
Well, it's more about the challenge that enterprises or MSPs face, that they don't actually know which software runs on their endpoints. And if you don't know what you have, you don't know what to secure. So it's about how can I make sure that I know which software runs on my endpoints, and how can I be in control of that and allow only the applications that I want them that don't be able to run on my endpoints.
But it is really important to do something with whitelisting, I guess.
Certainly,
it is almost mandatory, but it's without the inventory part, I think also the complexity is
it's really
key,
complex.
I guess,
yeah.
right?
Yeah,
and
it is. And it's also that it doesn't help that Microsoft isn't the most consistent as they can be in signing their own applications. So you have challenges just with the basic Microsoft stuff if you implement app control. So my session is mostly about if you can use app control or maybe app locker or whatever suits you the best.
Mm-hmm.
And you need to factor in the scenarios that you have to be able to make the choice on how you're going to secure your endpoints. And I think that app control, and I'm going to spill the beans about my session, is only worthwhile for companies, for enterprises, who have a dedicated Intune team and where everybody in the Intune team understands how app control works. Because if you don't, you just can't run your software. There's no way getting around it. Even if you're admin or system or whatever, it's kernel level based. So if you don't allow it, it's never going to run. And it's really restrictive. It works great, but your strategy must align also. And you need to be on point with your allow rules and with your monitoring, which you can do automated. And we'll talk a bit about that in my session. I will show you how to configure it and how to be able to automatically get the reports about stuff that is blocked by WDAC, and also have a strategy on how to keep your applications up to date within the manner that it works within app control, and how you can successfully implement it. That's the most part. Yeah.
Cool. What kind of considerations do you have to go into creating an effective default rule set for WDAC? And what would you recommend as a starting point?
The default rule set is frankly quite easy. And you can, what I choose to do is to implement the default allow Microsoft mode and add the user mode block rules, which are recommended on Microsoft Learn. Add that to log BG info and all that kind of stuff. You can also add the driver block rules that are recommended by Microsoft, but in my experience, they block certain Dell drivers, so your autopilot deployment results in a BSOD. So you need to be real careful to implement that and test it thoroughly. But that's good. That works. Pen testers have confirmed that, and but then comes the hard part. When you have allowed the default Microsoft applications, EPM agent doesn't install. And whenever you use W365, the cloud managed desktop agent can't launch all the DLLs. The Teams meeting and installer. So if you install Teams, you have an MSIX application. Works fine. Within the MSIX sits an MSI, which installs the meeting and installer in Outlook. So you can have a button for I want the Teams meeting. So within that MSI is a DLL that's not signed. So
nice.
if you that's the kind of challenges that you're going to face, because it's system wide and there's no way around it. So if you have a dedicated team on that who monitors this and can fix these issues, it's fine. But if you have an MSP where you manage hundreds of tenants, then I think AppLocker is still your way to go, because that's user-based and you can whitelist that for your system, user, and administrator, of course. So you can let those applications install and be able to run. And within the user mode, you might face some other stuff, but it's far easy to implement and far more easy to replicate across multiple tenants. And that's kind of the base of the story of the session.
Are you using the managed installer option also?
Yeah. Okay. If you don't use the managed installer and you use a custom detection script with the allow default Microsoft block rules, the Intune management extension can't execute the detection script.
Okay.
And I have a slide about this as well, because I forgot to enable it once and everything broke, and I was like, why? So I forgot to enable it, and I just started looking around, started checking the event log, and I saw that the Intune management extension couldn't run the detection script, which was fairly odd. And so the managed install is a must use. And the whole feature, App Control for Business, is still in preview. Managed installer was broke. It's now okay. I have implemented it a couple clients and it seems okay. So I'm looking forward to implement it enterprise customers.
Cool. So Stefan, Patrick, what are the most security misconfigurations you see in Citrix, AVD, Windows 365 and Omnissa environments?
Yeah, I don't typically want to address one configuration mistake, but it's more like a mindset mistake. Mm-hmm. And basically what we've seen a lot while in projects executed for such an environment is that the people who execute the project only configure the environment so the application is working right. So if your traditional SAP application needs to land on your modern workplace, everybody's happy when the SAP client is launching. They do not have any security mindset in place. They just sign off the project and then they go. What they don't realize is that the traditional applications needs to sit next to the backend configuration, so where all your gems within your organization. So if you do not protect it well, and they compromise the SAP published application in this case, they can be easily do lateral movement or ransomware your environment. Basically, because we're supporting remote work over the internet, like the Citrix, Windows 365, Azure Virtual Desktop environments, they are all internet-facing. Mm-hmm. So I think that's more or less like a mindset than only just one configuration mistake.
Totally agree. Nothing to add.
Nothing to add. Oh,
And that was our session.
So-
But there are, well, I think there are a lot of things we can easily fix within those hosts, within that environment.
Yeah, what would be the 3 security measurements you would always apply?
3.
Top 3.
Top 3. Okay.
Apply hardening according to the SIS baselines.
Mhm.
So that's a great starting point to reduce the attack surface of your host. It's the same with your endpoint management, but it's the same rule for your session hosts.
I think the one thing I've mentioned, you did the SIS one, is the application allow listing.
Application whitelisting.
And
So
since we're running on traditional domain joined session host, most of the session hosts are controlled via AppLocker.
blocker.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And we always advise to use it's on the GitHub repository of Microsoft. It's called Aaron Locker. And Aaron Locker is a script which can help you generate fast and safe AppLocker rules for your session hosts. So yeah, that's one of the low-hanging fruit of improving the security of your session host in this case.
And I think keeping your applications up to date.
Yep.
I think that are the top 3.
Yeah. One thing to add on that, we have an example in the session. Like this is a real-world example, is that recently I had a customer, I will not name them of course, but we found out that he has Adobe Reader installed from 2022. And as you all know, this has a lot of vulnerabilities. PDF is one of the most common thing to start a ransom attack, for example. But I made a joke, and he didn't like that afterwards. But he also installed the, with all respect, the Asian language pack. And I told him, like, okay, maybe this is handy for ransomware gangs to just open the manual how to start a ransomware attack and exploiting the CVEs at the same time. So maybe that's one thing which we see a lot of in those environments, outdated applications. And it's not only Adobe, but we've seen that you have event sponsor like Patch My PC. Maybe it's a smart thing to go to those guys.
Yeah, definitely. It's like the operating system is becoming more secure every Patch Tuesday, and the attack factor is often the third-party app, which is not maintained at all. And
Exactly.
You still see that a lot at customers.
And a lot of customers are struggling with, okay, how to keep it up to date.
Yeah.
So we can install it once and it's up to date from that moment on.
Mm-hmm.
And then what?
It works.
Yeah, it works. So done. But then how do we update? What's our patch strategy? What's our update strategy? And I think most customers are struggling with that.
Yeah, and I think for a session host, you want to have a controlled way. You don't want to enable auto-update of the app because it's in the user context, the update will fail. So you want to have a controlled way of updating your applications.
And you want to keep them all, because most of the times it's not just one session host. We're talking like 10, 20, hundreds of session hosts, but they need to be identical.
Yep.
It's all the same, based on the same image, based on the same, with the same updates, the same settings. So you don't need to have like manual changes. It's different with endpoint management, where you will perform manual interventions on those systems. With session hosts, it's more of so this is my farm. Treat them as your cattle, not your pet.
Yep.
That's the mindset.
Are there any easy implement tips, security tips, that have proven effective during your implementations?
Yeah, like basically my company is always doing a penetration test after the implementation. That's what we advise at our customers. And one of those implementation always gets a really high success rate for those pen testers blocking, executing their malicious code to see if they can compromise or do some kind of privilege escalation, is application allow listing. So in this case, it's Aaron Locker in combination with AppLocker. And one thing they noticed is that if you are using a pen test script, like for example WinPeace. It's Windows Privileged Escalation Awesome script. It's also on GitHub. It will download a lot of other tools, right? So it will raise like 10 app locker block messages in the event log in 1 second for an end user. So some pen testers mentioned like, hey, maybe it's a smart idea to add some abnormality detection in Microsoft Sentinel. Like if one user has like 3 or 4 application blocks in 1 second, maybe they're trying to execute something malicious and mark it as a risk. So that's basically a smart thing to do. And back in the days when doing allow listing, for example, I know I did some res Ivanti workspace control. It took me a lot of time approving stuff. And it was a hard process. But with
trial and error.
Exactly. But exactly. But with Aaron Locker, it's just a matter of seconds because it's scripted and reproducible to generate the app locker and WDAC rules in this case.
Is it also applicable for you?
Yeah, certainly. You can use your... So let's first talk about our application delivery strategy. We use a DevOps pipeline to generate applications to appear in Microsoft Intune. So we use that delivery process to automatically generate updates, and that's the only way applications are made onto our machines. So we have the managed installer, which whitelists those applications and also the updates. So we basically only need a machine that's installed, and only allow Microsoft stuff and some unsigned DLLs from some legacy software from the company. But basically everything is allowed through the managed installer. But you can also, because you have all the sources and all the archived applications, you can install it on a machine. Via Azure Dev pipeline, run Aaron Locker, and generate the WDAC rules also to have a complete allow list to do so. And I will definitely mention that in my session to automate the process as well.
And is that also for new customers? If, for instance, I am a small or enterprise customer and I want to start with AppLocker or WDAC, what would be the best approach?
I think first decide on how you're going to deliver applications to your machine. If you're going to allow users to install, even in application context, some software on your machines, then it's really hard to implement WDAC because it's kernel-based and it's device-wide, and that's not going to happen because it's like they're not pointing in the same direction, so it's not aligned. So it's never going to work. If you have a use case like that, please use AppLocker, because then you can allow some users to install some stuff and allow stuff user-based. And that actually, yeah.
And then start it with auditing mode, or
always go full beans. No.
Live on the edge.
Live on the edge. Yeah.
No. Audit mode is certainly advised. You can brick your machine. You can also do it with AppLocker. I've seen a customer who applied AppLocker rules in the machine wouldn't boot anymore. So always use audit mode, because you can brick your machines, and that can be a bad time if it's thousands all over the globe.
But we have autopilot, right?
We have autopilot.
Yeah. Just reset it.
Just reset it.
But then it will be bricked again.
Both of you, or all three of you, are mentioning community-provided tools for WDAC, for securing your session host and so on. How important is community collaboration in enhancing security practices and staying ahead of threats?
Really good question.
Yeah,
indeed.
I think, but that's just more my opinion about this topic, is that if you're a vendor in this case and you're doing something with security, then you need to do it really right, of course, right? If you're doing some stuff in security and it's not 100% coveraging the security, then you could have a problem, like if you're a commercial party. Yeah. From a community perspective, that's something personal, and it's more informal than formal. So if you make a mistake, it's mentioned there, like it's community stuff. So please enhance it. So I think the overall agility to adjust security best practices from a community perspective is faster than from a commercial perspective, because you need to do all the legal stuff and make sure if somebody breached using your product does not sue you because you missed something or something like that.
Yeah.
So,
and I think it's also that you can use the community products, but always test and validate. And
exactly.
Yeah, because Patrick, you're mentioning community products instead of products that are delivered by companies and that kind of stuff. If we are using community stuff for our customers, so we are selling it and using that to make our products better, how does that compare to what you were mentioning a few seconds earlier regarding, because we are delivering special stuff to customers and they pay for us, and if we are using community tools on that, how is that? Is that only testing and validating, or how do you see that?
It's always a chicken and an egg story, right? Like also from a customer perspective, if you're leaning on security from the community and you're breached, it's not a very strong point to mention to the company owner. Like, we're breached and we're using community tools. So in the other hand, you also need to have some tools which are signed off by vendors. So I think there's not a one-way ticket of only using community tools and vendor-based tools, but I think you need to combine them both. Like just preaching the things from the vendors and use that security tools, and add some for agility and in sake of speedness, add community tools on top.
Yep. And still a customer can decide for themselves what they want to use, for example, their automations or...
Exactly.
Yeah. And basically those community tools, the reason why those tools are here is because vendors are, most of the time, there's a gap between functionality. So with WDAC or with SIS, there aren't any tools who can compare it. It's not a vendor tool where we can say, okay, so this is my endpoint, these are my applications, go fix.
But even SIS is a community. So
of course.
It's a community of security.
Of course. And so, for example, with the SIS baselines, it's all been written down in a lot of documents, and you can read that document and you can implement it manually. That's error prone. You can make some mistakes. And the reason why there are community tools is you can validate, for example, those settings. And it's up to the customer if they want to leverage those tools within their environment. I think it's our job to help them. Okay, so I would recommend using these tools because it will save you a tremendous amount of time. Or we can use this tool to validate and get your greenfield or your brownfield, your current environment. Well, this is the status of it, and now you can perform these actions you want.
Nice. For security professionals that are listening to this episode, who want to implement some tips, but may face limited resources, what advice can you offer?
And limited resources in
time.
Money for
that's
external
always
consultants.
It depends.
it depends.
It's always the same.
Well, first you need to make some time to come to events like this, because then you will get a tremendous amount of knowledge and possibilities to share it with others. But if time is the constraint, it's very difficult. Because you need to invest time to do this.
Yeah. Well, what should be the first thing that they need to do regarding session host or regarding application control?
Well, knowing what's possible and knowing the current state of your session host, knowing so Niels just said it. Okay, so if you want to protect something, you need to know what to protect.
Yeah, that's what Sami Layo always says. If you don't know what you have, you don't know what to protect.
Yeah,
so first thing is inventory.
So asset management,
know what
applications.
This is something we've seen a lot in the remote desktop thing, is that a lot of security pen testers do not know how this works, right? And it might be a smart idea if you're doing some pen tests on an end-use computing environment with remote desktops, that you know how the whole stack is working. And real-world example, what I experienced lately, is that I had a customer who was really proud of securing their session host with FIDO2 keys on conditional access, blah, 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 for their end users. And then I get access to their environment with an admin account using a terminal of a remote desktop services gateway without MFA over the internet. So I called him like, hey, maybe this is not smart, because RDP, and I learned this from I think also Sami Lau, like RDP stands for Ransomware Deployment Protocol.
Yeah.
and you're using high privileged accounts, accessing your domain controllers, for example, over the internet. And the answer he gave me was, but we do a pen test every half year, and the pen tester told me like the ciphers used by the remote desktop gateway, they are using TLS 1.2, so we're secure. And that rings a bell in my mind, like, okay, this pen tester doesn't even have a clue what a remote desktop services gateway is. I can imagine if he wants to test an application with a web server which hosts a database, this is enough. But he doesn't realize that you're just opening a remote desktop protocol without MFA with a high privileged account towards backend infrastructure.
But not just that pen tester. It's also the administrator who is, to be honest, lacking understanding of, okay, so this is our environment.
Yeah, but he doesn't even realize this is a security vulnerability. He noticed me like...
and it's very difficult because there are a lot of things where you need to keep in mind of. So applications, access, identities, hardening, PowerShell, whatever. But the first step is to know what to protect and understand, okay, so this is my entry point. Our users will connect to our environment like this. So to answer your question is there are a lot of easy to implement steps for your session hosts. It's even with for your endpoint management, but you need to know what steps you need to take. So know your environment.
But would a service like Defender vulnerability help in
course.
this case?
Of course.
I don't know. I don't know if this mentioning like, hey, you have an RDS gateway with high privileged accounts without MFA. I don't know if Defender is mentioning that.
Not like that. You need to extend it.
Yeah.
But for like the base, so a antivirus is better than no. We just mentioned it.
Yep.
So it's also knowing what to protect, and also what you don't know what you're missing, what you don't know.
No, exactly.
So I think that's the hardest thing for people to understand. And also there are a lot of things which you can easily configure without any impact
Or costs. A lot of the stuff that you can implement is already within your license suite. So please look at what you have before implementing a SOC and do all the expensive parts.
Reuse before buy.
Yeah, do the low-hanging fruit first and make sure you use all the Microsoft tools. And I think if more companies did that would be less ransomware attacks.
Definitely. All the same, but we will be better protected. Fight them off.
And I think if they target you, you're doomed. So
Yeah. if the real target is on your back, then you're doomed. Yeah, certainly. But if it's like the Russians say, you don't have to run faster than a bear. Only the person next to you.
Yeah, definitely. To finish this recording a bit up, what is your key message, your final takeaway for the people who were or would be in your session today?
I think one particular one is there's currently a cyber war going on, right? Like as we've seen, Russia and North Korea shaking their hands also on Ukraine, but I think they're also attacking the West. We've seen a lot in the news lately, and I think they already breached a lot of companies. So, I think security should be more on topic at some customers as it is nowadays. And don't be the motorcycle driver who didn't fall and only take action when you fall.
Yeah, I think mine is just real plain and simple. Start using app control or app locker. And because it's in everyone's license suite. Everyone that's in the room in a couple of hours has the license to use app control and app locker. So
Use it.
Yeah.
And I think mine is, so with our presentation, the goal was to give the attendees a quick overview of, okay, so these are the quick wins. And I would recommend to just start tomorrow, validating or checking, oh, so this is my environment which I am managing. Yesterday I saw a great session of Patrick and Stefan. What do I see? And how can we change it? Because every little step you take, it's better than what we did
Doing nothing.
yesterday and doing nothing. Indeed, correct.
Nice. Thanks for being here in this podcast episode. I really love the insights on Windows 365, on AVD, on Citrix. Still Citrix. It's years ago that I used it, but it's coming back and back.
What's that, Citrix? What is it?
And Niels, what you were mentioning on app management, I think really worthwhile, and I need to add that on my list for the next few weeks to do something with it. And probably if you are listening to this episode, so you know to start with app control or WDAC to start maintaining and managing your applications. You know how to secure your session host if you have some of them. So thanks for the insights, guys.
Thanks for the invite.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for having us on this conference and podcast, man.
Yep.
You're welcome.
So, and if you're listening, you know what I said. Start with it and like and subscribe this episode if you love it, and you see the new episodes coming up and coming through. So if you would like to leave a review so we can do better, that's highly appreciated. So thanks for now, and until next time.